Party animals, like and subscribe if you want your center draining threes tonight. Some new features we're adding to lineup study, but it's not so much about the features, it's so much about why they're important and maybe how we can use something like this for ourselves, right? So I don't know how many of you track not your scores or your winnings or anything, maybe not even projections because that's by default tracked a lot, but how many of you track everything else? Say like ownership projections, or I don't know, projections from multiple sources, or if you do some sort of I don't know, any other metric that you input yourself into FC. Sorry, is there any way you guys track that at all outside of just it being on lineup rewind every time you go back? Do you guys even care for stuff like that? I asked this because we have now implemented, and it's something we wanted to get done for a little bit, for a little while, is add something like ownership projection to some of the views we've been looking at a lot here. So, for example, something like this, ownership projection, and these are Awesemo's ownership projections, right? I track projection and rewind, okay, all right. So something like this, if you hover over, you'll see FC Pro ownership projection by Awesemo, right? And little by little, it's one of these things. We also have like FC projections, right? And if you were to go to each of these, now we have what we had them projected at, and we're going to keep adding. We're going to keep adding as we go. But the reason why this is important, it's not because of the actual features, right? I'm not trying to sell you the features. It's, I think, tracking stuff like this, because a lot of us use ownership, right? A lot of us use some sort of I don't know, metric to see how much we should play someone. Exposures, we track. I mean, I don't know, whatever you guys input. There's a lot of things you guys input, and everyone inputs different things. If you track all these things and kind of have them there, so when we do go to lineup rewind or we do get on lineup study, and we do go over some of these things, we know more or less where everything was at that day. That way I don't have to, one, ask someone, or two, just guess where some of the ownership was, right? Can you import your own projections in a column to compare? So here's my thing. If you go a step further, let's just take Nickelback as an example, right? And let's say I used the FC projections and I made my lineups, and I know more or less what I did. But if I go to his lineup and I open something like this, and then I see what the projected fantasy points were for his lineup, then I could start making assumptions here that are a little bit closer to, and I could start, you know, well, maybe if I don't have to go all the way, because if I use these exact projections, right, and I had all my lineups that I made were projected at 285. And, you know, he has lineups here projected at 274. What does that mean? I don't have to be 100% accurate when making some. Like, you know, you could start making different assumptions. It doesn't have to be that specifically. But when you go back and start seeing things like this for multiple slates, and I always say, when you want to go study, but have a sample, right? Have a sample. It doesn't make sense to study 1 week and then make decisions based on 1 week. It doesn't help to do just one slate. In the case of NFL, you go back 1 week, it's just really one slate. The more slates, the better. The more sample, the better. The more slates you have, the more you have to look back on, right? And make better decisions on. And this is kind of what we want to get at with a move like this, right? So it's obviously all sortable. You can go in and kind of group things together. If you wanted to filter some of these things out, see, you know, guys that are above a certain ownership projection, see what the top guys did. For example, I want to put Nickelback and I want to put this BK guy who I know is a really good player. According to the projected ownerships we had, what did they do with those guys, right? And this is a really cool view, because this is actually what we have before lock, so this is actually what matters. And using these numbers, what what did they do, right? Or what could we guess that they did? And at least have something to base their exposures off of. I think something like this is obviously really sharp. So it's something little by little we're going to implement. Obviously, we want to add more. It's not just ownership, but for me, I want to go back and I want to have this at my disposal, because I don't know if you guys do the same thing, but every time I go on Lineup Rewind, and let's say I go back 2 weeks, I'm like, well, what was the ownership that day? The first thing I do is Discord. Fonzie, did you have ownership projections for this person from back? And now we have it on FC Pro, so you don't have to. But before, it was, do you have this? Do you have the standard deviation for everyone? Do you have the... Now it's all on FC, so it's great. And now that we have it on Lineup Study, it'll make it even easier to study, right? And I just started uploading little by little. I uploaded everything. Well, what were the projections from here? What were the projections from there? Why did they do that? At what time did this happen? And it's like, I just want this all already, so I don't... Because like, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but it's gotten to the point where, and I'm just a player in the world we live in. And the world we live in, you guys have heard it a million times. It's our attention spans are growing smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, to the point like, well, we're under a goldfish, right? Like we have less attention span than a goldfish, right? And our patience is also dwindling. We have zero patience. As humans, we have nothing. And it's to the point where, man, if I want to study, because I know how valuable studying is. Trust me, I want to live in lineup study and lineup rewind and everything. But I gotta upload I gotta go get my projections. I gotta upload and whatever. I don't feel like doing it. Tell me all of you don't do the same thing sometimes. I've done it. I do it all the time. Until it's one of those, you lose 3 days in a row. It's like, I'm gonna freaking study, man. I'm gonna study. I don't care how long it takes me. I'm freaking going in, and then that's when I start spending the 2 hours. But all the time, it's like, I don't feel like going and getting projections. Like, what? Was he really ruled out at that time? What was my... It's just like, that's annoying. It's annoying, and it feels like, I know I should be studying, but I'm going to go make this YouTube video instead, because I know this is more valuable and whatever. And it's just like, days pass, weeks pass, and it's just like, I didn't get to study. And today I didn't study. And... I started talking to Dave. I started watching a YouTube video. I started doing, and it's just like, today I didn't study. And it's just because it's just annoying at times, right? It's just annoying at times. But if it was all there for me already, and I don't have to do anything, which in Lineup Rewind it is, but now in Lineup Study it is too, then we're talking, Then I could avoid this.